Alright, today we're going to do simple and compound interest. Interest is a thing that you will deal with for the rest of your life, whether you have a credit card or you're getting a loan or you have a savings account. Now, simple and compound, that's not what the banks use. Okay, these don't give them the most money if they're talking about loans. What they do is they compound continuously is what they call it. We're just going to talk about simple and compound interest. Okay, those are the simple methods. It's more to introduce you to interest, and then later on we can discuss what the banks use. All right? Simple interest. It's paid only on the initial principal of the savings account or loan. The principal is the amount invested or borrowed. That's what you got to know. How much did you borrow or how much did you put into that account? To find interest, you use this formula. I equals PRT. Interest for that year is the principal times the rate times time, which time is always in years. Do not forget that. Time is always in years. Your book today will ask a question like find the interest of something that's invested for 6 months. Is that in years? No, so do not put 6 right here. 6 months is half a year, so you would put 0.5 of a year. Okay? Do not mess that up. If it says for 12 months, don't put 12, it's by years. Okay, always divide that number by 12, figure out how many years that is. All right? Don't miss this up. Time when you're calculating interest is always in years. So you take how much you invested or how much you borrowed, times it by your interest rate, and then how many years that loan is out there for. That tells you how much you're going to pay in interest. So write this down. So let's say $1,000 was borrowed at 4.5% for 2 years. Okay, this is how the banks make their money is by charging interest. They give you the $1,000 and you don't have to pay it all at one time. You pay it little by little to use it to buy whatever you need. However, they're going to make money off of it somehow. So what they do is they charge interest. This is what credit cards do. They'll give you a credit card that might have a spending limit of $1,500. So you can go buy and whatever for $1,500. And you don't have to pay very much. They'll only want $20 or $30 per month to pay that off. Where they get you is the high interest rate. Credit cards have high interest rates. It's like 25%. So let's say you only get $1,000. So you may only buy something that's $1,000, but if you keep letting it build up on interest, you might pay a lot more than that. Okay, that's the way they work with cars. All right, you buy a car. You ever heard on the radio they talk about if you owe more on your car than it's worth? Okay, you hear that dealers will say that on the radio. That's because people got behind on their payments and on their interest, and so they owe $4,000 on a car that's only worth $2,000. All right, that's what happens. That's why you guys need to understand interest. So I use I equals PRT, my formula. My principal is $1,000. My rate is my interest rate, which I have to change to a decimal. So I divide by 100. So 4.5% interest rate is 0.045. And I times by my time, which is in years. This is 2 years. So I take 1,000 times 0.45 times 2. When I do that, I get this, $90. So if you were to borrow this amount for 2 years at this interest rate, you would pay $90 extra. All right. Now, if it was to say, what's the total cost of this loan? What would it be? $1,090. You would add the interest plus the principal. That's how much you would pay. Let's do one more. Write this down. $2,500 was borrowed at 6.75% for 3 years. So I use this. I equals PRT. 2,500 times 0.0675. We have to change my percent to a decimal. And then we times by how many years? It's in years, so I can times by 3. 2,500 times 0.0675 times 3 gives you this. 506.25. This is how much extra you would pay. If it asked for how much you would pay total, you would add that to your principal. So you would pay a total of $3,006 on this if it was a car loan that's how much you pay on your car. All right, so now we're going to do compound interest. What that means is it's being paid on the initial principal and on the interest earned in the past. So you don't times it by 3 years if it's a 3-year loan. What you do is you times it by 1 year, but you have to calculate it for each year. So each year it builds on itself. So write this down. All right, so this is what questions are going to look like when it's dealing with compound interest. It's going to say, what is the total amount of money in an account where $600 was invested at an interest rate at 8.75 annually for 2 years? So that's the key. The thing you need to see is if this is simple interest or compounded based on that word right there, annually. Okay, that's compounded interest. Okay, so what we do is we use I equals PRT, but we don't times it by 2. T is not going to be 2 here. It's actually going to be 1. What we do is we have to calculate the interest for year 1, the first year. So I use my principal, which is 600. I times it by my interest rate, which is 0.0875. I change 8.75 to a decimal. And I can times by 1 for years, or you can just leave that off. It's not going to change anything. All right? So I take 600 times 0.0875 times 1, I get this. 5250. Then I have to do it for the second year because this is for a total of 2 years. So it has to build itself. So second year. My principal, though, is not going to be 600. It's going to be your principal from year 1 plus your interest from year 1. So it's going to be 652.50. You have to combine your principal with your interest from the year before. Because like I said, compound interest builds on itself. The initial principal plus the interest that was earned last year. So I take 652.50 times 0.0875. I can times it by 1 or I can leave that off. It doesn't matter. When you do that, you get this. 5709. So that's how much interest was earned in year 2. Now, even though I'm using a calculator, I'm still showing my work. That is what's required today. Showing your work just like this. If you don't, you're going to get it wrong. 1, because I told you have to show your work. 2, it's because you're going to just times by numbers that aren't the right numbers you're supposed to be timesing by. So you're supposed to find the total amount of money in the account after 2 years. So is it 5709? No. Is it 652.50? No. What I have to do is I have to combine my principal from year 2 with my interest from year 2. When I combine those, I get 709.59. That's how much total amount is in the account after 2 years. Now, if this was done by simple interest, it would have only been maybe $90, if not less. So this is where you make more money, is based on compound interest, by compounding it annually. $5,000 invested at a 5% rate, compound annually for 3 years. So we got to do year 1, first year, at 5,000 times 0.05. I changed my 5% to a decimal. That gives me $250. So I made $250 just by keeping my money there and not touching it. I made $250. For year 2, the principal, what's in there now, is 5,250, because that's how much interest I made plus my initial principal. I take that times 0.05 and I get this, 262.50. So in year 2, because I haven't touched my money, the bank is paying me $262.50. But I have to do it for a total of 3 years. So my third year, my initial principal for year 3 is this, 5,512.50. I take my principal from year 2 plus my interest from year 2 and combine it. That gives me my principal for year 3. Take that times 0.05, which gives me 275.63, which I then add to my principal from year 3, 5,512.5. Here's how much that account made, okay, in 3 years. It made $788.13 because all I did was put that $5,000 in the bank. That bank paid me $788.13. So for not touching my money for 3 years, now I have this amount in my account. Any questions? Here's your homework assignment.